Now, why do we do the work of human relationships? It's hard work to do, to create intimacy in human relationships. I believe it comes back to the fact that we are made in the image of God. That our value and worth as human beings is in the fact that God made us in his image. In Genesis 1:27, God said, "Let us make man in our image." In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Clearly, we're made in the image of God. Each one of us. And in some way, there's something about husband and wife together that reflect the image of God in a different way than the individuals do. But 8 chapters later, in Genesis 9, verse 6, this is God talking to Noah after the flood. The context of it, God has just wiped out the wickedness, saved Noah and his family. They get off, and God gives them a bunch of new rules. I think it's kind of interesting, like after he cleans everything up, God gave a rule for capital punishment for murder. It says in 9:6 that if a man murders another man, the murderer's life will be taken from him. And then he has a little phrase of explanation, like that's a pretty big consequence. And his little explanation of why such a harsh consequence is simply, for man is made in the image of God. That to attack and murder a person is a direct attack on God, because that person bears his image and has to be met with the highest form of punishment a human can meet another human. Because that human's value comes from the fact that they were made in the image of God. Now consider that for a minute. Made in the image of God. That image belongs to God. It's his image. He could take it away if he wanted to. But Christ's death on the cross is God's definitive statement of whether he would or not. That instead of withdrawing his image, wiping us out, and starting again, which if I'm honest, if I were God, I'd probably do that. That and a bajillion other reasons why I wouldn't make a good God. But God didn't. He said instead that he was going to send his son to be one of us, to live as we live, and to take all the punishment for us, that he won't withdraw his image. Now, I would submit to you that that image comes when we are a human being, when all the DNA of a human being is present at conception. That when that is a human being, God in his God way, and theologians have debated the image of God for thousands of years, so I'm not going to try to settle it for us in a brief moment on this Sunday morning. But to know if we could explain it, that's a small God. It's beyond our understanding, but it's really cool. At that moment, when we were a human being, God stamped his image. And to illustrate the fact that it doesn't have anything to do with something that we've done to impress him, what do you think a fertilized egg could do to impress the God who created the whole universe? So that God would put his image there because he was so impressed. Nothing. It had nothing to do with us. It had everything to do with God's love for us. That God demonstrated that. Even knowing before we were conceived, but that when we became a human being, that we were going to be sinners, that we were going to turn away from him, we were going to sin. He still did that knowing that. That's how much God loves you and loves me. And that any work you do on building or rebuilding relationships is an act of worship to God. Now I want to hasten into this discussion, the reality of part of why I shared my story with you last week. As I mentioned, when I was in the crisis center, I was struggling to grasp that I was there. I shouldn't be there. I visit people who are here. I shouldn't be here. But one of the things that God got through to me during my time there is that I was just like everybody that was there. My brokenness looked a little different than each person there, but all of us were broken. And I realized every one of us as humans are broken. None of us are perfect. And in understanding that none of us have a right to judge another person. We are called to judge the fruits, to inspect fruits of a person's life, because we can't see the inside. We'll come back to that a little bit. God is able to see the inside of us, but we can't see the inside of another person. But when you see, there but for the grace of God go I, in other people, you have more compassion for them. You realize all of us have the capability of doing incredibly wicked things. And just because we've served the Lord all these years doesn't mean that we can't make a choice to really mess up and do bad things. But when we see that we reach out to other human beings as an affirmation of their value and worth. We have this truth written on the wall in our office when clients come in to see that we believe everybody's made in the image of God and worthy of honor and respect. I think that's something that our society, on whatever sides of whatever aisle or discussion, really has lost. That when you speak to a human being, you're speaking to an image bearer of God. Speak accordingly. Especially in marriage. No matter what your spouse has done, they still bear the image of God in them. And they're worthy of honor and respect, because when you show them honor and respect, you're showing that to God. Whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord. And in relationships, that makes a huge change. I think there's 7 characteristics that reflect what the image of God in humans is. First, we are spiritual beings. We are personal beings with uniqueness, personality, self-consciousness. We are moral beings. We have a sense of right and wrong in us. We are relational beings with God and others. We are rational beings. That intellectual intimacy I was talking about. The ability to think, to know, to learn. We're emotional beings. And we are creative beings. Not ex nihilo, that's out of nothing. God is the only one that can create out of nothing. But we can take stuff and make stuff in a way that is pretty incredible. That these characteristics, and this isn't an exhaustive list, I think the more I study, and I had to do a lot of this studying because it was a part of my doctoral research, like why would we do reconciliation in relationships? I see, as I saw, yeah, it really has to do with they're worth the effort. Relationships, as God designed it, are incredible. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything about God. He is so incredible in depth in all directions. I feel like a kindergartner each time I try to think about who God is and His love for me. But like a kindergartner, I get giddy at times, just knowing like He loves me. He loves me even when I mess up. Because His love isn't based on my actions. It's not based on how good I was. It's that it was given to me before I could do anything good towards Him. Before I could do anything.